So I've been spending the past little while here for another visit in what I am becoming increasingly convinced is the most beautiful city in the world, Amsterdam. Canal-lined streets and delicious treats. What's not to love? And part of the reason that I am here is because of the topic of today's video, the abundance mindset and its antagonist, the scarcity mindset. It's honestly a bit surreal to be here right now because I used to dream about being able to do something like this, about being able to pack up and go travel while still being able to work. I literally used to dream about my office for the day being sitting beside a window overlooking the canals, and I mean, here we are. It's just, it's just a lot to take in, especially paired with the incredible support you guys have been giving me on the last few videos. I just want you to know that I am really feeling all the love and support and gratitude and just all the emotions. On this trip so far, I've been reflecting a lot on these two different mentalities, scarcity and abundance. And I want to ask a question that I hope we can answer together. What's more powerful, the mind or the body? Or put another way, where does success or failure begin? Is it in the amount of hours I've worked, the skills I've developed, or the connections I've made? Or is it in the mind? Is it possible that two simple but opposing frames of mind have been directing everything in my life, from my finances to my relationships to my experiences to, well, everything? Let's talk about it. The abundance mindset is typically characterized as the belief that there is plenty. There are many opportunities for you now and in the future. There will always be more money, more people, more joy to experience. The scarcity mindset is what we fall into when we believe there is a finite amount of something or a lack of opportunities, and we are fearful of this. You may have heard of the abundance mindset through its association with the highly popularized law of attraction. But I don't think today is going to be your typical discussion of that subject matter. I remember watching the documentary The Secret and hearing a guy say something like, yeah, I was just started thinking a lot about money and I just received a check in the mail. Don't worry, I'm not going to be that guy. Obviously, that's not the way the world works. And I think it's safe to say that there is unfortunately, a lot of people getting taken advantage of with stuff like this. With that being said, I do have a very healthy level of respect for whatever metaphysics happen to overlay our physical reality because of some very interesting experiences that I've had in my life. You see, growing up, I developed a scarcity mindset from a very young age. Honestly, I just realized this recently, and it's been very eye-opening. My father was my family's sole income earner, which meant that he worked very hard to be able to provide for us. My mother stayed at home to raise me and my brother, which is a completely different type of hard work. Shout out to all the moms out there, by the way. And that provided a different kind of wealth that money could never buy. But because we were living on only one income, I learned very quickly that there was scarcity in my life. I by no means grew up in harsh conditions. I want to make that very clear. But my father had to be so strategic and so frugal with our money in order to give us the best life that he could. I had to beg for a toy from the dollar store. And the idea of splurging on something was like a completely foreign concept. This, I think, was a double-edged sword because on the positive side, it instilled the value of money in me. It taught me that this was a resource to be managed and respected, not squandered. But it also, I think, put a ceiling on what I thought was realistic for my own life. It made me feel as though I should take whatever life happens to give me, even if I didn't really want that. It's kind of like taking the little shampoo and conditioner bottles from a hotel. They're not great and you can easily buy bigger and better soap somewhere else for a little bit of money, but your mind tells you to take them. Why? I think it's a textbook example of the scarcity mindset taking over. And I believe I ultimately fell into this subconsciously for much of my young life. I think A lot of us do, right? I mean, I'll just speak for myself here, but my parents never said to me, "Hey Steve, you're gonna be rich. You're gonna be a millionaire." They were, and still are, incredibly supportive, and they definitely instilled in me the belief that I could do anything I wanted to do. But specifically when it came to money, I think there was always that little bit of hesitation and fear. And that's completely understandable, right? I mean, no parent wants to think about their child struggling financially. It scares them. So I think they tend to direct their kid towards the safe path, towards the guardrails of society, where they can have a decent living, so long as they show up for work at 9 a.m. and then follow the rules for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Looking back now, I can see that this fear drove me to make so many choices that I didn't want. Choices in high school, what I studied in university, even going to university in the first place. I try to not have any regrets on it and dwell on the past or anything like that, but man, if I could have spent those 4 years starting my creative journey then, well, who knows? But I do know that university, or just the traditional education system that we have for much of our society, is not my lane in life. But I did resign myself to it because of that fear. Until I finally, for the first time in my life, and with a great deal of effort, changed my mindset and ultimately changed my life. Where I used to see scarcity and closed doors, everything looked open. Everything looked abundant. And speaking of abundance, I want to take a quick moment to talk about today's sponsor, Artlist. If you want an abundance of music and sound effects to use for your next creative project, believe me, they have you covered. In fact, I used Artlist for my latest cinematic video. Remember this song? That's from Artlist, and I've found tracks with vocals on them like this to be especially powerful. They can really add a lot of emotion to your video. You know, too often I think we just kind of, again, take the safe route and use a piece of music that's just purely instrumental. But trust me, if you want to add some serious punch to your video, try out something with vocals. You can even filter by specific instruments, which is a really cool feature that I haven't seen anywhere else. Every song and sound effect downloaded on Artlist is completely royalty free and will be cleared for use on all of your social channels using your membership, which you can find a link to down below. And if you sign up using that link, you will get 2 free months off of an annual plan. Which, by the way, has excellent pricing, completely affordable and totally worth it if you're looking to take your videos to the next level. So thank you to Artlist for sponsoring this video, and thank you for providing a great abundance of awesome music. Me quitting my job was the first major action I took in my life to basically step outside the guardrails of society and see what I was capable of. There's a phrase that I really like: fortune favors the bold. And I think it's very true under specific circumstances. Remember at the start of the video, I asked the question, what's more powerful, the mind or the body? The intent or the action? Well, quitting my job was certainly a bold and maybe even symbolic action, but I think because it was done in concert with a major change in my mentality, that's when lightning truly strikes. Because I think the intention is just inert without any action, and action is hollow without any specific intent. For far too long, I would be thinking, daydreaming, sitting at my corporate desk about what type of life I wanted to live. But guess what? No checks just showed up in the mail for me. No one came up to my desk and said, "Hey, you know what, Steve? You can quit. You can quit today. And in fact, hang on a second. Let me also give you all the money in my wallet." No, I had to take bold and difficult actions that specifically challenged a scarcity mindset. But because I had developed a new mindset by the time I quit, I didn't feel scared. I actually felt really empowered. Honestly, I felt at that time in my life that I could bend the world to my will. I felt like so strong, inside and out. And I attribute that specifically to practices that I did to get into that mindset. Speaking from my experience, especially as someone who was deeply embedded in a scarcity mindset for so long, it takes a lot of hard work and dedication to be able to break out of it. You can't simply just change the script in your head overnight by just thinking positive thoughts. Reprogramming the mind it's no small task. I think this could be an interesting topic for a future video, so I'm going to table that specific process for now. But inevitably, you can definitely slip back into prior ways of thinking. I believe this has happened to me, especially from focusing so much on financial independence or from being kind of public facing like this, being online. It can be very taxing for someone like me who's pretty introverted. I remember listening to Beyonce in a documentary, and she was telling the story of how she was sitting around a table of record label executives and they were listening to a new album that she had created. And she felt very shy and sensitive about this because all of these people were sitting there in front of her judging her art right in her presence. Now, obviously, I am not comparing myself to Beyonce. She's a deity, come on. But I can definitely relate to those feelings of sensitivity. On top of that, I think the financial independence community is like prime breeding ground for a scarcity mindset. I treated my old corporate job like this thing I just needed to suck as much money from as I could and then pinch every penny like Mr. Krabs. Of course, that did let me save enough money to be able to quit my job, but the irony is, I didn't even need that money. I quit my job with $90K thinking, all right, you know, I've got about 3 years of cash run rate here to make this thing work. And then 1 month later, I was already earning a living. I don't think this was a coincidence. Interestingly, now making much more money, saving much more money, I still find myself sometimes kind of treating my money like Mr. Krabs because I still had this goal of being financially independent by 35. But inadvertently, I might be delaying the very realization of that goal by perceiving money as something that is scarce. Now, I know this topic can seem a bit far removed from the standard stuff like stocks, real estate, and what's happening with interest rates. But I truly think the relationship between your mind, your psychology, and money is much more important and powerful than the minutia. I had this brief and beautiful period where I unleashed the most powerful mindset upon my life and imbued it with a tremendous energy that I can still feel the afterglow of today. But in the corners of that glow, a darkness still threatens to take over and revert my mind back to old patterns of behavior. This ramble today, more than anything I think, serves as my intention to burn that flame once again and tell the shadows, like Gandalf on the bridge, you shall not pass.